You ever notice how some Netflix shows barely get 2 seasons, and others vanish after just 1, like they were never even there? We're not going all the way down that rabbit hole yet, but just know, there's a pattern. And let's just say, not every cancellation is about not enough people watching. Today though, we're shifting the lens. We're looking at why Korean content doesn't need to play by those same rules. Why Netflix's investment there might be their smartest long game yet. Alright, let's get into it. So, The Hollywood Reporter recently published a piece asking what comes after Squid Game. And while it's a fair question on the surface, the way it's framed tells you everything. Because asking what comes after implies you're expecting another global sensation, another cultural supernova, another Netflix mega hit cut from the same cloth. But here's the thing, Squid Game wasn't a franchise formula. It was a Black Swan event, a show that no one predicted would reshape global streaming trends. Like any true Black Swan, its significance only became clear in hindsight. So today's episode, it's a direct response to that kind of thinking. Because Netflix isn't trying to clone Squid Game. They're building a system where Korean content thrives on its own creative and economic terms. And once you understand how those conditions benefit Netflix and audiences, you stop asking what comes next and start appreciating what's already here. Let's talk about why Netflix doesn't need another Squid Game. Because here's the reality. Squid Game Season 1 wasn't just a hit. It was Netflix's biggest hit ever. And success like that distorts expectations. When something blows up globally, the instinct is to find the magic formula, bottle it, and do it again and again and again and again until the end of time. But that mindset rarely leads anywhere good. In fact, it often kills creativity. Just ask Rockstar Games. When Grand Theft Auto V launched, it made $800 million in the first 3 days. It's one of the best-selling entertainment products of all time, and that's before you even touch the massive income from GTA Online. With those kinds of numbers, you'd think Rockstar would try to replicate that exact formula over and over and over again. But when they released Red Dead Redemption 2, they made something clear. They weren't expecting it to be the next GTA 5. They weren't trying to catch the same lightning again, and that saved them. Because Red Dead Redemption 2 carved out its own identity. It didn't chase a blueprint. It focused on what it was good at. Quiet storytelling, slower pacing, and deeper immersion. That same lesson applies here. Squid Game wasn't successful because Netflix told it to be. It succeeded because it was bold, local, emotionally raw, and not a copy of something that had already worked. The problem is, in the West, especially with streaming, there's a massive pressure for every new release to perform at that breakout level. And if it doesn't, well, just ask the creators of Jupiter's Legacy or the fans of Shadow and Bone how that story ends. Both shows had passionate followings. Both were cut down because they didn't become Stranger Things big. And speaking of Stranger Things, some episodes cost as much as $30 million each. That's not television, that's blockbuster economics. And the second a show can't match that level of impact, Netflix pulls the plug. Because they have to. Those budgets aren't forgiving. But Korean content? That's a different game entirely. Korean dramas often cost a fraction of what American genre shows do, sometimes around $1 to $3 million per episode. That opens up a whole different approach. You don't need a Squid Game level global takeover to justify a second season. You just need to connect with your audience, build loyalty, tell a great story, give it room to breathe. And that space allows for boldness. Remember Star Trek Deep Space Nine? It was the weird one. The show that didn't hit quite like The Next Generation. TNG was the juggernaut. DS9 was darker, more grounded, and rooted to a space station instead of boldly going anywhere. A risky move in the Trek universe. But you know what? DS9 ran for 7 seasons, produced 173 episodes, and is now considered one of the best entries in the entire Star Trek franchise. Meanwhile, TNG, once the gold standard, is often called out these days for being too preachy, too neat, and way too self-righteous. DS9 didn't explode out of the gate, but it had time, it had narrative space, and it built something lasting. That's what this $2.5 billion bet on Korean content is trying to do. And Netflix made that announcement in May of 2023, just as the writer's strike was stalling American productions. This wasn't some last-minute pivot. It was strategy. It was them saying, let's invest in stories that don't need $200 million budgets to win. Because they saw the trend. After Squid Game, viewers didn't just stop. They explored. They watched more K-dramas, more Korean reality TV, Korean documentaries, food shows. People didn't want another Squid Game. They wanted more Korea. That kind of cultural flow through doesn't come from a single viral hit. It comes from sustained, thoughtful, creatively free programming that builds trust with the audience. Netflix's internal data backs this up. Viewers are sticking around, not bouncing after the one show. And that kind of retention, that's gold. So no, Netflix doesn't need another Squid Game. What they need is more shows with time. More opportunities for something unexpected to grow without being judged against a Black Swan that nobody saw coming in the first place. And let's be real, chasing Black Swans isn't a strategy, it's a casino. If Stranger Things is your only benchmark for success, everything else is a disappointment waiting to happen. But if you shift the focus, if you build an ecosystem where shows can exist affordably, take risks, find their people, that's how you build real value. That's how you make room for the next Deep Space Nine. So maybe, instead of asking what comes after Squid Game, we should be paying attention to all of the shows quietly thriving without making headlines, because those are the stories that last. And Netflix, if they're smart, they're done chasing Black Swans. Let's just see if they stick to it. Now, before you click away, I've got a few things for you to do. First, let's start a conversation. Do you think Netflix is finally learning to prioritize long-term storytelling over short-term viral hits? Or are we still stuck in the age of go big or get canceled? I want to hear your thoughts. Drop them in the comments below. Second, if you made it all the way to the end of this video, comment the word Deep Space Patience. 3 separate words, but I say it's one code word. That's how I know you're part of the crew that sticks around for the slow burns. I see you. And third, if you haven't seen my breakdown of Squid Game and why virality doesn't always mean long-term success, that video's waiting for you on the end screen. It's the perfect companion to this one.